The second cup of coffee is never quite as good as the first cup of coffee of the day. Okay, let's get started for real. Hi, my name is Summer, and welcome to SomerKnits podcast episode 37, I think. I will double check that later. But if you are new here, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. This is a podcast mostly about knitting. Every once in a while, some spinning or some crocheting or something else. I keep thinking about getting my weaving back out, but I just haven't done it. But also, apparently this morning, it's a podcast about coffee. I did put a little tipple of rum shada in my coffee for some flavor. Not enough that this podcast is going to get crazy, but just enough for a little bit of taste. But I do believe what I said at the beginning, that the first cup of coffee of the day is absolutely 100% the best cup of coffee of the day. And I'm willing to fight about it. No. But if you agree, just let me know below. A little bit of admin, real quick. If you enjoy the podcast or get any benefit from it at all, I would really appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Maybe hit that subscribe button if you haven't before, or share it with a friend who you think might enjoy the content as well. All of these things help small podcasts like mine to reach a larger audience. And my podcast is not monetized, so that just is just for me. Like, it's not anything to do with income or anything. It is just strictly to do with, it brings me joy to make the podcast and meet new people. And so I really appreciate all the likes and the shares and the comments. I love chatting with each and every person. And you can also find me on Instagram and Ravelry, and all of that is linked below. I always try and link projects and things. And if I ever forget something, please feel free to let me know in the comments. My mug today is a handmade mug from Stone Cottage Pottery and Farm. And I think she might still be on a break because she had surgery. But her stuff is beautiful, so hopefully she'll be back at it soon. And, oh, if you haven't been here for very long, I talked a while back about how I'm on a mission to replace most of my everyday dishes with handmade pieces. So our coffee cup collection is, other than a few sentimental pieces, almost entirely handmade at this point. Most of our dinner plates are individual handmade pieces, and it makes for a beautiful but eclectic collection. So every once in a while, I like to share the pieces I find and the potters I get them from, because I think every single piece is a work of art and deserves to be appreciated. This mug is a beautiful purple glaze, and you can see that there's a whole lot of color variation in there. I know you're getting some glare and some reflection there, but it's a beautiful purple mug. It's also got a really comfortable handle and a very nice shape. So that is Stone Cottage Pottery and Farm, and I will try and remember to link her below as well. But go ahead and give her a follow on Instagram, because she shares beautiful things, even when it's not her mugs and plates and things. She shares beautiful things on Instagram, so she's definitely worth a follow. Let's start with what I'm wearing. Just yesterday, the Eclair raglan by Laura of Penrose Knits was released to the world. And it's just a beautiful cable knit sweater. I know that it's probably blowing out a little bit, but I didn't want to lose the sunlight coming in the windows. So I did the bobbled version on the front, and on the back it is smooth. I just omitted the bobbles. Laura has both options in the pattern. I did a full 10 inches of positive ease. You can see there's a lot. A full 10 inches of positive ease for my bust size, because my hips are larger than my bust, and I did the tunic length with the split hem, and I'll stand up real quick and show that, even though it's a little awkward. So My tunic length is long enough to decently wear with leggings, which I do have on some sparkle leggings today. So, a couple things that I still want to go back and change or fix about this. Even though I did my ribbing tightly, as Laura indicates in the pattern, after blocking just from the weight of it, I still got a little bit of stretch in those stitches at the bottom. So I'm just going to go in and stitch behind them to strengthen those splits just a little bit to give it a tighter, neater look. And that's totally on me. That is not on the pattern. Also, when I'm test knitting, I try to knit exactly to pattern because I want to be able to give appropriate feedback. And I know a lot of designers will allow you to modify certain things, but I feel like part of the job of a test knitter is to give accurate feedback for the pattern as written. Torso length, though, generally most designers let you personalize because everyone who buys the pattern is going to probably personalize that as well. So that, not so much, but everything else I try and do exactly to pattern. So I do have underarm holes that I am going to go back in and fix because normally I pick up 1 to 2 extra stitches beyond what the designer says in order to close those gaps. But I did not do that. But I haven't closed those holes yet because I may take the sleeves off and re-knit them. Laura intended for the sleeves to be knit at a tighter gauge than the body of the sweater. But it came up in the testing process that that note wasn't in the pattern. It is now. It is in the final version, I believe. But I habitually go up a needle size for sleeves because I do knit tighter in the round. And after my first few sweaters of my sleeves being tighter than I wanted them to be, and then listening to and watching Andrea Mowry's podcast for a while, I realized that yes, I do get tighter when I knit smaller circumference, and so I habitually go up 1 needle size to do my sleeves. This sweater is designed for the sleeves to be at a tighter gauge than the body. So don't go up a needle size for your sleeves. Otherwise, your sleeves will be really big. I also might take an inch or so out of the sleeves. I know Laura has them coming halfway down her hand, and maybe when they are less baggy, it won't bother me so much. But right now I just feel like I have a lot of extra fabric when I push my sleeves up. And mostly you can see it up here. And it just makes the sweater look slightly too big. Even though the body fits appropriately. And you can see I still wanted positive ease around my hips. But the positive ease down here at my hips is definitely not the same as the positive ease up here, closer to my bust line. And that is intentional. Laura says that if you want to do the tunic length sweater, you're better off making sure that the measurement around is bigger than your hip size for a nice, comfortable fit. And that's, of course, fit is a very personal choice, and you can totally personalize that and decide how you want the sweater to fit. Some people did a super cropped version. Other people did a like normal mid-length version with no split hem, just a regular ribbed hem. And a number of us did the tunic length with the split hem. I thought the cropped version was super cute. I'm not a re-knitter of most sweaters, so I don't know that I will get around to doing that, but it was really cute and looked great on the tester who did it, and their name is escaping me right now. But I want to be able to wear this sweater, and I feel like the sleeves are just too big, which is why I haven't closed the underarm gaps, because I may rip the sleeves back. And I have a really hard time with going back and altering things that feel finished in my mind. So I'm going to really have to talk myself into that. I may give it a few wears first, just so I get to enjoy it while it's still cold here. But then I probably will. Maybe I'll wait till the summertime to take the sleeves back so that I'm not frustrated by not having it in my wardrobe. The other thing I might do is add a little bit of elastic around inside the collar, just right at the top. And it's not because I want the collar to sit any closer to my neck. I actually don't. I've been frustrated recently with some of my sweaters where the collar rests right on the front of my neck. And that gets itchy or irritated. So I just like there to be at least a little bit of space there. But I don't know if you can see, there's this one wonky area in my collar. I don't know if it was the way it was laying when it blocked, or my collar pickup, or something else that I did underneath, because this is not like where my collar pickup started or anything. So it's not where an end is woven in, but you can see there's just that odd angle that happens right there, whereas you get a nice smooth collar right here. Tiny bit of elastic in the top of the collar is going to round it just perfectly. So I'm just going to pop that in when I get a moment, and only draw it tight enough to get a nice roundness to the collar, and tie it off and be done with that, because I'm not reknitting the collar. But see, just sitting here, the extra fabric in the arms makes it feel like I'm wearing something massively too big for me. And I know the body isn't. It's the sleeves. But don't let that deter you from this pattern, because it's a beautiful, beautiful pattern. And I thank you, Laura, so much for letting me test knit it. I don't know that she watches my podcast anymore, but I really appreciate being able to test knit for Laura. She's very responsive and just an excellent designer. And I appreciate that she really values the feedback from her test knitters and treats her test knitters so well. So thank you, Laura. This is the Eclair raglan. If you wanted to start this pattern, it would definitely qualify for the knit along that the grocery girls have going on right now for raglan sweaters, which everybody should enter, because why not? There's great prizes for that one. Past Me is going to pop on for a few minutes and talk about a couple of gift knits that I no longer have with me because I've already put them in the mail. The less dressed up and more casual version of me did film a couple of quick segments so that I could show those before they were no longer in my hands. Because I'll be mailing it out before I film my next podcast, I am going to show you Geet the Garage Monster real quick. He is finished and ready to be sent to the birthday boy. He has one row striped legs, little feet, little stuffed arms, a little tooth, sewn on eyes. I didn't want to use safety eyes since the kiddo's just turning 1. And then his tiny little ears at the top. Hopefully you can see him fairly well. I know he's a brown monster against a brown wall. But I just wanted to film a little bit of him because I think he's adorable. You can see how big he is relative to me. And I just think he's really cute. So before he gets mailed off, I will insert this into my next podcast. Okay, it's past me again, and we're going to see if I can tell you about another project real quick before I run out the door. And of course, I just saw an issue with it, so now I'm mad at myself. But I'll show you real fast, and then I'll fix it. So I made a headband, and it's so hard to see because it's such dark yarn, to send to my cousin for her birthday. And it looks like in sewing it, one of the sides did not catch in the seam. So I'm going to have to resew it real quick. But it was a free pattern, I believe. The Stratus headband by Natalia Pleshko. And it is a real simple rib pattern. To a repeat, really easy. I used Debbie Bliss Cashmerino Aran. I had a few balls of this left over in deep, deep stash from the early 2000s, and a size 7 needle, and it is so soft. It is not my color, so like my hair is not made for these kind of headbands, but they live in a cold place. They have a dog they walk. So nice ear warmer for them. Makes my hair look silly, but that's okay. You can see the little twist at the top. So that's it. It is just a quick little gift knit that I'm going to pop in the mail today. Okay, next up I have one more finished object. I guess I should have done all the finished objects before the temperature blanket. Actually, editing me can rearrange all that. Yeah. So by the time you see this nonsense will be nonsense because I will have done those things. But one more finished object. Well, okay, it's an almost finished object. It's really close to being a finished object. It's another bunny, but it's a different kind of bunny this time. So this is a blanket buddy. It is from the book 101 Designer One Skein Wonders, I think. I have a whole series of those 101 One Skein Wonder books, and one's for sock yarn, and one's designer, one's the original, one might be luxury. I don't remember. Anyway, got a bunch of them. So, the blanket buddy knits up super quickly. It is, if you've made washcloths, you know, there's that traditional one with this edge. A lot of people call it a grandma's favorite. There's other names for it. Anyway, the body of the bunny is basically like that washcloth. But then there are instructions for little arms. And I loved how the head was done. It was actually double knit. It was very interesting. I haven't done a ton of double knitting, but it was super easy, very smooth, enjoyed it. And then there's instructions for the floppy ears. And now I need to put little eyes on. So I'm just going to embroider some little eyes this afternoon. I'll try and snap a quick picture. But this is going with the other bunny to the baby shower this weekend. So I needed to film now because the bunnies will be gone. So we're going to have some bunny buddies going to the baby shower, and I'm super excited about it. I love this bunny. It's really cute. It's so soft because I use Lion organic cotton, Lion brand. This was deep stash from like early 2000s. I love this cotton for its softness. I like cotton for baby toys. The other bunny was Lion brand Cotton Ease, which is, or no, that was the monster. Sorry. The other bunny was wool. But this bunny should be pretty easy to wash. It is a fiber fill head. I didn't overstuff it because I wanted it to maintain its little bunny head shape. Anyway, this is my blanket buddy, and I think he's adorable. Attempts are being made to drink my coffee before it gets cold. It probably won't happen, but attempts are being made. I want to real quick check in on my temperature blanket. You might notice if you tried to count the stripes that I'm a few days behind on my temperature raglan. I have been doing 2 or 3 stripes in the mornings when I can to catch up, but when I got to where I was finishing this, I just wasn't willing to set it down to work on my temperature blanket. So I am all the way through February 9th, so I'm not that far behind. Today is Wednesday, February 15th. So if I keep doing 2 or 3 stripes in the morning, I think that I can catch up fairly quickly. You can see that we had a cold snap right here. Still loving this pattern. Obviously the rows are getting longer, but I kind of like that because in the beginning they're almost frustratingly short how often you're having to cut and tie the yarn. I love not having to weave in the ends. I love the fringe. This is the Excavation, and it says by Hypnotizer, and I forget what her actual name is, but it's a free pattern, so I can show it. And it is so super easy. And when we reach the halfway point for the year, then I will reverse and start working the other way. The fringe will move to the other side, and I'll be decreasing instead of increasing. And I've mentioned before that I love this because when it gets to the heavy gift knitting season of December, even November, the rows will be getting shorter and they will hopefully be less pressure, and I'll be able to keep up with it, and at the end of the year have a beautiful finished temperature blanket. And I'm loving my colors. I'm very much enjoying this knit, and it's just, you increase at the beginning of each row, and yeah, at the beginning of every row for the first half. So it's mindless. It's a mindless knit. Like, I don't have to think about it till I get to the end, and I make sure that I tie a square knot so that it will stay. A granny knot would eventually come out, and I want to be able to wash this, so definitely a square knot at the end when you cut the yarn. And I know I'm impatient to use other colors, but I know once we get to spring and summer that it's going to be like consistently hot enough that I will not feel that way anymore, or I'll be impatient to get back to cooler colors because I have a feeling the whole center of the blanket is going to be one or two shades, but that's all right. I picked only shades that I enjoy and that I felt would go well in my goals for the house. This green is not a goal for my house. This green is hopefully eventually on its way out, but I don't want to replace the sofas while we still have a Great Pyrenees who thinks that he is a couch potato. I have the big sofas covered because he really is just a couch lounging dog 24/7. But this green is not my green. I am definitely much more of a blue, turquoise, violet, and hopefully I can move the house in that direction as time goes on. Um, so that is my temperature blanket. Let's check in on some old whips before we dive into new whips. I have had a few occasions where I have needed small size purse knitting, either an event where I was only going to take a small purse or something where my hand movement needed to be very small and my project down in my lap. So I have, oh goodness, I'm in the middle of a round. Well, I'm always in the middle of a round, but because it's magic loop, I don't want to get my edges confused. Anyway, this is my rainbow musselburgh hat, and it looks kind of muddy from far away. Let's see if we can get better color. It's better. It's pretty bright in person, especially the pops of turquoise. Um, the yarn is from Threads by Megan Nicole, and I bought it in June during Pride Month. Um, and it's just, I've got it contained here because it had to be loose in my purse for a while. It's just a really beautiful rainbow skein, but it is making for a very busy musselburgh. I think if I bought this again, that I would plan on it being combined with a solid for something like stripes or color work or something so that it was just popping through and not being the whole thing. Um, so, well, and you can see how it changed from super small circumference when I started and did my increases to when I really got going and the colors really mixed up more. But my kids love a bright musselburgh, and my son says that is his favorite hat style now. I'd actually like to try Isolde's newer hat pattern. I haven't bought it yet, but I'd like to do it. But I want to finish this musselburgh first. So I do like how mindless and portable they are. I like having one on the needles for just when I need something that's small enough to stuff in my purse, but not a sock. I find that I stop and start a lot on socks. Like I don't know, something about the musselburgh is just the right circumference for me to just keep going. And I could move it onto 15 or 16 inch circulars because it is at that point now, but I didn't find the right size in my stash and I just didn't take the time to look for another needle. I'm sure I have one. I'll just have to find it. And that'll make it even easier for putting in my purse and doing on the go. But for now, it's Magic Loop. It's in this little bag that my husband got me a few years ago. I love this for walking and knitting. When I am volunteering at the kids' school and I'm just basically a hall monitor, I walk and knit because it makes the kids stop and talk to me, which is kind of awesome. And I've gotten to know a lot of the kids that way. You ever do that thing where you think you pressed record and you didn't press record and then you don't remember anything you just said? That's totally a thing. I'm going to do a quick update on this one because you guys have seen it before, but I have kept it in my backpack and I have kept putting stitches into it just a little bit at a time to hopefully eventually have a finished blouse. This is the Cumulus. I've shown it on here a number of times. Once again, there is absolutely no mohair in my version. This is all in Knitpicks Gloss Lace held double, which is a merino silk blend, I'm 90% certain. This is my ideal blue, and I'm loving the soft squishiness of this. But in one of the Discord groups that I'm in, we had a discussion recently on color theory, and I am draped a light summer in the 12 Blueprints SciArt TCI set of color analysis, and this blue is just like my favorite. And you can tell the difference between when I'm surrounded by all white, which is not quite in my color palette. A slightly more off-white color is, but it's very hard to find in yarn because a lot of yarn that is off-white or natural leans to yellow. But you can see when I put the blue up next to my face that it just really works for me, and I don't need a lot of makeup when the colors I'm wearing work for me. I've gotten a lot of comments in the last week about, wow, your hair color really makes your eyes pop, and that is fully intentional. My hair color is very close to the raspberry shade that is in my color palette. And I know I wear glasses on the podcast most of the time, so you can't always see my eyes, but when there's harmony, it definitely, it's a thing. Like it's a whole thing. And I love my color palette, and it vibes well with my personality, so I'm absolutely thrilled with my color palette. But I can't wait to have this done, if for nothing else than the squishiness and the absolute perfection of the color. But it's a long-term project, and who knows how long it's going to take me to actually get it finished. So my next work in progress is my other unplanned test knit. I did agree to test knit the Sibling Sweater for Laura of Penrose Knits. I am test knitting the largest size, which is a child's 12, for my 11-year-old daughter. The measurements with the recommended ease perfectly fit her, so we did some swatching and some yarn choosing, and I have started that, and I volunteered to do either my daughter's size or my son's size, but it is easier to find test knitters for smaller children's garments than it is for larger ones, because generally children's test knits are shorter, and an older child's garment is almost as many stitches as an adult garment, especially like an adult small. So I just this morning joined in the round. So I'm going to show you, but it's going to try and roll up on itself. So here's where I am. This is a drop shoulder construction. And one of the details that Laura has put in here is this beautiful increase across the back, which just looks so lovely once you really establish and get going. And it's so hard to show at the point I'm at now, but it's just lovely. And how many times can I say that? Anyway, we're gonna ignore that. So then you pick up and do the shoulders, which I did. And like I said, this morning, I just joined the front, and I still am on my contrast color. So sorry, this is not the first set of colors that I tried swatching with. I tried a swatch that was the blue speckle, but with a dark blue variegated, and the colors together were gorgeous, and my daughter loved it, and it was beautiful. But the blue speckle here is a superwash, and the other was a non-superwash. They weren't knitting up at the same gauge. They didn't behave the same way when I washed it. This is why you should wash your swatch. And even though I think it would have been beautiful, the other yarn is the one I had enough to use as the main color, and that's what would have sat up at her neckline. And I think ultimately she would have felt like it was just the tiniest bit scratchy. Like I think it would have ended up bothering her a little bit, even though I don't think she thought that. She doesn't have very many super woolly, thick garments. So anyway, I just didn't want to chance it. So I found in my stash. Um, so this is the light blue, and it is a Southern Skeins, and you might remember it. It's a recent one. Um, I don't know if I did not throw the label in my bag. So I don't remember what she called it. But this was a very recent Southern Skeins DK. So I had 2 skeins of this, and it's just so beautiful. It's coming up pretty accurate on screen. Woo, there we go. Yeah. Um, but I had quite a bit of this really pretty purple, which is also, sorry, coming up pretty close to accurate on screen. Every time I try to photograph it, it looks more brown in the photos, but it is definitely this plummy purple, and it's gorgeous. Um, so what we're getting here are these beautiful stripes, and if you look closely, you can see that the speckles in the blue yarn have the same plum purple in them as the plum that I'm using. And so it's just making for lovely stripes of solid and speckled. My daughter is liking it so far. I'm hoping to make a little more progress on the front because when she gets home from school, I'd like to pop it over her head and see how the back and the front are laying on her. And I don't feel like I'm far enough down the front yet to get an accurate read on how it's sitting. It will grow a little bit because it is superwash yarn. And I know that, and I've swatched for it, and I'm prepared for it. So when I lay it on her, I know it'll sit shorter than it really will after it's blocked and with its final measurements. So you have to know how much your swatch grows and be able to calculate and account for that in your final product when you're using especially a superwash yarn. And I don't think I've made it with a label for the purple either, but it is actually a merino cotton blend. Oh, it's gotten tangled. So there is some cotton in the stripes that are this color, but it knits up at the same gauge. It behaves very similarly when blocked. There we go, finally. It's almost equal softness. The cotton in this breathes a little, but the superwash yarn feels like it's going to breathe also. And I think this combo will work well for my daughter because she does, she's very proud of the hand knit items I make her, and she wears them. Like, she wears that ballet wrap cardigan every single week to ballet, and she wears her hand knit sweaters to school. So she needs things that wear well, that we can take care of, but that she can still do the kid things and be a kid in, because I think kids don't get to be kids quite long enough, and I don't want to do anything to like hamper that. And yes, she knows to take care with her hand knits, but also don't want her to have to overthink every single thing she does. So anyway, this is the Sibling Sweater by Laura of Penrose Knits, and it will come out sometime in March, I believe. It's a quick 4-week test knit, and we are already more than a week into it, so I've got to crack on. I do not regret taking on any of my recent test knits. Like, I love the Eclair raglan, and I do not regret taking on the Sibling Sweater because I'm going to have a beautiful finished object for my daughter. And I already have a planned sweater for my son. But I'm having some serious FOMO. You might remember I swatched for a for a lento that I never ended up getting to cast on. And I'm afraid to cast it on and get addicted to it right now, because I know that the Sibling Sweater test knit is really short. It wouldn't feel that short if I was doing a toddler size, but doing a size 12, it feels short to me. I believe the deadline is like March 7th, and we have some significantly busy weekends between now and then, including my birthday. And so I'm just really worried about hitting that deadline. But I really want to cast on that Lento because I'm so excited about the color combination. But I did take a few minutes to do some swatching, and the swatches aren't very big yet because they're not done. But a couple of different yarn combos that I'm swatching for a sweater for my husband. And I've been wanting to do a sweater for my husband for a while now. I've never knit him a sweater. And Taylor from Wool Needles Hands is doing a F the Sweater Curse cowl. And I would really like, the cast on date was yesterday. I would really like to at least use that as a jumping off point for casting on, so that I at least get started, because I know that this is going to be a long-term project because there are so many other things I want to knit. And I would like to knit it without him seeing it. And I know that that is a really tall order and it might not be doable. And that also might be iffy because chancing the fit. But he's tall and slender, and I've taken his measurements, and I've messaged Jonathan from Jonathan's Days probably an annoying number of questions because they're actually the same height, and the same chest circumference and the same build. And I just, so I've messaged him a ridiculous number of questions, but he's so patient and he always answers, and he just seems to be a genuinely wonderful person. If you're not familiar with his podcast, I always watch it when it comes out because I really enjoy his vibe and listening to him. But I'm going to talk about this project bag real quick because it's brand new to me, and it's love and rainbows and gorgeous, and it's a Love is Love bag. If you haven't been here very long, I'm a firm believer that love is love and a supporter of the LGBTQ community. I'm sorry, I forget all the letters, but I just also thought these rainbow hearts were gorgeous, and the fabric popped up from Kelly E. McD. Is that? I'll put her Instagram because she runs her stuff through Instagram down below, but she is Maddie's mom from the We Share Needles podcast, and if you're not familiar with them, they are a lot of fun, and I'm always laughing watching their podcast, so very much enjoy them. But I impulse bought a new project bag because I wanted more of the slightly larger size that could easily hold an entire summer garment or a kid's sweater or something like that, because a lot of project bags that I have are very small or they're very big, and this is a nice medium. And I like the handle. I like how well they're finished, and you could fully reverse the bag. It would just, the handle would end up on the inside. So, if you've been around a while, you might remember this Knitted, which is a mess right now, but that's because I'm working on a swatch. So I have 500 grams or more, maybe 600, of this gold Knitted, which was much lighter yellow in the photos that Onarak Air posted. And so I bought enough for a sweater for me, and then I got it, and I kept trying to swatch it with different things, and I didn't love it. I couldn't love it. I tried over and over again to love it. So if you've been here a while, you might remember that. And then I ended up ordering some mohair. This is the Filcolana Tilia in the color Tapenade. And I got it from knit.co.uk because when I was ordering the yarn for my Eclair, she was willing to combine the shipping when I placed a separate order to get the Tilia. So anyway, I put the two together, and I'm actually getting a color I do love. Not for me, but for my husband. I'm losing the light because the sun is now up high enough that it is no longer coming in my two little windows. And so I might not get as accurate a color now as I was earlier. But it's darkening up the yellow enough that maybe if I hold it against the white, yeah, that it's more of a burnished gold, almost a bronze. So I'm actually enjoying this color now. Finally, it's taken a while. Um, However, I was swatching for the single malt by Maxim Cyr, and I have way too many stitches per inch right now. I know that the swatch isn't done. I'm going to keep going a little ways because I was swatching on the 8s called for in the pattern. I am going to swatch a little farther and then switch to 7s. But you know, like when you start a swatch and it's obviously too big, that's where we are right now. So I'm not going to go too much farther with it like this. And I realized I wasn't swatching in the round. But I usually start my swatches back and forth. And usually I remember to do them in garter stitch, but I failed to do that. And it's usually to keep them from rolling. But I really just wanted to see the color in this first before I put a lot of effort into the swatch. Because if I didn't love the color, then there was no reason to keep going. So I'm going to try going down a needle size. I am going to start swatching in the round. I'm not sure how well that works with Newtoden, but I'm going to try it. And I just want to see if I still love the fabric, because I love the fabric at this gauge. This gauge is not right for that pattern. If you know of any patterns that are meant for unspun yarn, that are graded for a man's body, I would love if you could drop those in the comments so that I can take a look at them, because I don't mind having another pattern in mind for him. I am gonna, like I said, keep swatching and see if I like it at a tighter gauge, but if it starts to feel too dense, then I'm not gonna use it for that pattern. If I can get there with a fabric I still like, then this is my first choice for the single malt, because I think it would look beautiful on him. However, just in case, I had bought a yarn a while ago that I had intended to use for a sweater for him that I'd never gotten around to. It is a fingering weight yarn, but I bought like a lot of it, thinking I could hold it double for something. So I started swatching that also, and like I said, I have not gotten very far on that one. It's a totally different vibe, as you can see. But I am swatching in the round on this one. I think, and this would be after a soaking and a measuring and a whole lot more of the swatch, I think I am a lot closer to gauge. I am on 7s, and so I am going to steal these 7s and try. On the Newtoden, they're also wooden, so they'd be a little grippier. I love these. They're the 4-square needles by Knitpicks. But this yarn, once again, with the not having tags, I'm going to have to drop the information in. But it is a blend, and I know it's got Surrey in it and a few other things. And it feels rustic, but not... like, it's very toothy, but it's not super scratchy in hand. But he wears such fine gauge sweaters usually that I'm worried that he might feel like it was scratchy. So I am going to soak it in a wool wash when I block it and see what the resulting fabric really feels like. Given the things in it, it sounds like it's going to be super soft once it's washed. But we will have to wait and see. It is a really gorgeous tonal. Can we get the color accurate here? It's a tonal gray, but when you see it in person, and maybe I'm gonna try and block my face but not block the light. I don't know if you can tell on the screen how much. Come on, light. There's a little bit of brown to the gray. And it's so hard to see even when you're just in the shadows in person, but when the light hits it, you can see that it's not just gray, but that this gray has a lot of character to it. So I'm swatching by just using the inside and outside of one ball, but if I use this for the sweater, to make sure I don't have lines from changing skeins, I am going to hold different skeins together and change second strands at different points to kind of make sure that I'm mixing the skeins up really well. Yeah, it sounds a lot more complicated than it really will be. But anyway, I've got a ways to go on this swatch. I just put, a few minutes into it last night while I had my daughter at gymnastics because that way he couldn't see it. And I did start the stitch pattern for the single malt. The other thing I could do with this, if I do make gauge on the single malt, or if I just can't make gauge and don't know what to do, because this is 2 strands of fingering, so it's quite a bit finer than that. I also, once I get a little farther in the swatch, I'm going to switch and swatch the stitch pattern for the Gib 2 by Andrea Mowry, and she has the female version, and then she has the male version. I think the Gib 1 is the ladies, and the Gib 2 is more a masculine body type. It could be the other way around. I don't even remember. But I know I've already bought it. I bought it during her sale last year, I think. So that is my other option, and it's another all-over texture raglan, but it has little cables in the raglans. So if I do the single malt, I'm not sure I'll do the Gib because it would be 2 very similar patterns. So we'll see. If I end up choosing another pattern that is more for unspun yarn, then I'm going to do either the Gib or the single malt, whichever I can get a better gauge for and like the fabric for, because the single malt calls for Aran weight and the Gib calls for worsted weight. So the Gib calls for 7s, the single malt calls for 8s, and so I just want to see what I get a better gauge for. But I do want to make a sweater for my husband, and I wish I could get you really accurate color on this, but it doesn't seem to want to. And it'll be easier to see the stitch pattern when I get much farther into the swatch. Like I said, I just started that for a couple of minutes last night. I didn't want to put aside my sibling sweater for too long because once again, I'm feeling the pressure, even though I know there's still 3 weeks left of the Testknit, just because I know how long it can take to do sleeves that are almost as long as like my sleeves. She may be a kid, but she's got those long kid arms that happen when they become a teenager. So got to work on that, but I want to keep swatching so that eventually I'm ready to cast on, and I want to use the knit along to get myself to at least cast the sweater on. I'd like to start a segment where I share some of my favorite things that are not necessarily knitting related. So if you're only here for the knitting content, it is favorite things and then books from here on out. But I shared my paper planner, and that was really well received. And I am glad to hear that some of you out there are also paper planner users, but it is like the only thing that keeps me on schedule. But I did not buy any yarn. Go me. I did buy a set of needle tips because I could not find my size 5 needle tips anywhere. I have 4 different sets of interchangeable needles, and they must all be in use, and I just don't even know what projects they're in. But that's okay. I went and grabbed a pair of Licca needle tips because they fit the Knitpicks cords, and that is what I have. So, and I'm absolutely in love with them, and I'm totally trying to sit on my hands and stop myself from adding a full set of Licca needles to my wish list. But my birthday is coming up really soon, March 1st, and I could put them on my birthday wish list, but I'm trying to resist because I do have a number of sets of interchangeable needles, but I am loving those needle tips right now, like a lot. And my mom had a similar experience when she bought a set of their fixed circulars for making hats. She was really loving those needle tips. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is the brand she goes to from now on and continues to buy. But so my favorite thing is a recent acquisition. I am not the first owner. I bought it secondhand. It is also a second quality, so just know that going in. I did not pay full price for this bag. You could use it as a project bag, but really it's a tote. It's a purse. It is from Portland Leather Goods, but like I said, I bought it secondhand, and it is also a second quality bag, so it's got just a couple of spots on it that don't bother me at all. Got a pattern in it right now because you could use it as a project bag. You could. But I put a couple of projects in it the last time I carried it. It's nice and big inside. Right now I have a hand cream, and this is one of my other favorite things. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get that where you can read it. This is Moon Valley Organics, and it is my favorite solid hand cream. You can see I've used it quite a bit. It melts easier than a lot of hand creams. It absorbs in quickly and just leaves my hands feeling awesome. So I carry it around because there's nothing worse than your hands getting dry and snagging on your yarn. The only other thing in the bag is my inhaler because I need to have that with me at all times, just in case. So it is a nice big bag, has a little pocket inside, has a nice size pocket outside, nice long straps for putting over the shoulder, or there's a big long strap for wearing it crossbody. I believe that this is their medium size tote, but like I don't really remember. I am not up on all of the luxury handbag specifics, and I care less about the brand name on this bag than I do about the color. I saw the vibrant hot pink, and somebody that was in a small group that I am in online was reselling it. So it wasn't a stranger. And it was the color. It was 100% the color for me. I was just like, how could I not want a well-made hot pink leather tote bag? Like, especially for a really good deal. So I just jumped on it because, like I said, I have not bought any yarn. I have only knit from stash, and I'm doing pretty well with my stash knitting and still keeping track of the number of skeins I've knit in my planner. And I'll give an update on that again at the end of February, how many skeins I got through in February, and we'll look back and add that to January and see where we are for the year. I know some people are doing it, doing their stash down by yardage or meterage. I'm trying not to focus on like an exact number, but just on using those things I already have that bring me joy and that I bought for a reason, and actually putting them into projects that I'm either going to enjoy giving or enjoy using. And like, I mean, I bought that yarn for a reason, so I want to use it and enjoy it and have it in my hands. And that is what I'm really focusing on. I want to wrap up this episode with some book chatter, and I don't remember the last time I mentioned what I was reading or what I had read. I do know that I mentioned that I'm keeping track of my reading in my planner, and yes, that was January. So since I don't remember what I've mentioned, and I can't think of a time on a podcast I filmed since January where I talked about books, I just want to go through what I've read so far this year, and I don't really have a list, but I've kind of been writing down things as they're recommended when I have my planner with me, sometimes adding things to my to be read tags in Libby, which is where I download all my audiobooks. I love my library. Libraries are the best. Anyway, I listened to, we're just going to say read for the sake of ease, The Lost Apothecary at the beginning of January, and I very much enjoyed that. It's fiction. I'm not sure if you would classify it as historical fiction because it takes place in two timelines, and one of them is present day. And then I started book 6 in the Wheel of Time series as soon as I finished The Lost Apothecary, and that is The Lord of Chaos, or Lord of Chaos. I don't know if the word "the" is in the title. Anyway, simultaneously, I finished reading Desperation in Death, which is a J.D. Robb book, and yes, I read trash romance because I can. And that's more like sci-fi, romance, future, I don't know. It's not super sci-fi, but it is future set. Um, and then I started reading The Choice by Nora Roberts. It's the third book in a trilogy. Um, and I'm still reading that because that is my only a few minutes at night kind of reading. And I enjoy it, but it's just simple, lighthearted, mindless reading. I mean, yes, there's going to be some stuff in there, and I'm sure there's going to be some emotion in there, but like, it's not serious reading. It's just reading. It's for enjoyment reading. Um, and I also, my daughter has asked me to read Heartstopper 1, which I have not gotten to yet, but I need to. I want to read Everything I Never Told You. So those were kind of in my notes from January. Flip to February, and The Lord of Chaos got returned to the library because my 2 weeks was up and there was a hold on it. So I couldn't keep going with that. So in one day, I listened to The Demigod Files because my oldest and I are reading, we're in the second set of 5 Rick Riordan books, if you read them in order. So Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief is like book 1 of set 1. And we read all 5 books in set 1, which is Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And then we're in set 2. And I don't remember the name of the full series. But anyway, The Demigod Files is just some short stories in one book that just kind of are a companion book. So I just listened to that because it was only a 3.5-hour listen and very quick. And then that same day, I started Malibu Rising, which is by the same author as The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And some people had told me that I might not like Malibu Rising. I actually really enjoyed it. And I don't know how much of that was the fact that I lived in Malibu for a while. So everything they talked about was super familiar, and it was really neat to listen to a story set someplace that I had lived, or if it was the storyline itself. I mean, it was good. The storyline was good, but that one, I mean, it was another one where I started it on Thursday and I finished it on Tuesday, so it was quick, even though it was probably a 11 hour book, maybe a bit longer. And then I was finally able to restart Lord of Chaos, which I finished today, right before filming. Still enjoying the Wheel of Time series. Still not loving the reader a whole lot, but I want to read some of the like really lighthearted or easy read, quick read knitting mysteries that people keep talking about, but they're not available on my Libby app. Most of them aren't available at all. Like, I can't even just download them and read them on my Kindle, much less listen to them. But I want to read like the Thursday Night Murder Club and stuff, but I don't have access right now. So I have to see if I can track those down. I don't want to spend a ton of money on them, like buying them, but I do kind of want to track those down. And maybe my library has physical copies and I need to get online to the actual website and request the physical copies, but they weren't available on the app. And I don't really have any other notes written down in February. I realized that was a really quick rundown of books and not a ton of reviewing. I do want to read more of the books. I forget the author's name. I'll try and look it up, put it down here. That the lady who wrote The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Malibu Rising, I do want to listen to some more of her books because the reviews are hit or miss. Some people loved them all. Some people really only liked The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and didn't like much of her other stuff. So I've heard different things. But since I go through audiobooks like water and I don't mind just letting them play while I'm doing stuff, I do want to do a few more of hers. Um, I am totally open to book suggestions. I like romance, I like fiction, I like mysteries. I do go back to the comments on videos where people have listed book ideas when I am looking for a new checkout. So definitely leave your suggestions in the comments, what you're reading or what you're loving right now. And I do like to be able to refer back to those when I'm looking for a new book. So I very much appreciate those suggestions. And I have tried authors that I hadn't tried before, and I really like that. So thank you to everyone who's left a suggestion before and who will in the future. Um, I'm not sure I have much more today. I don't know that I will get this edited and up today. I have a number of projects on my to-do list, but hopefully I get it up pretty quick because I hate letting these languish. I feel like um, my energy is to get it up the day I record. So we'll see. But thank you so much for joining me, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. Every like, every comment, and every subscribe means the world to me, but the interactions with you mean the most. So thank you for being a part of my greater knitting community, and thank you for letting me be a part of your world for a little bit. Um, that's everything for this week. I don't know when I will film next. The kids have a few days out of school coming up, and I have a number of big projects that I need to get finished. So who knows? I may jump on next week and just do a quick one, but it could be a few weeks. So thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Bye.